Get a deeper connection with the Cougars of BYU sports.
God gives us a gift, and we use that gift until he takes it away.
Deep Blue.
Just sitting down afterward and being really tired and thinking like, wow, I just won the U.S. championship.
This is Deep Blue. Here's your host, Jason Shepard.
Thanks for tuning in for a new episode of Deep Blue. This is the show where we get to know the person behind the number that you see on the field or the court. These are the true stories of BYU athletes from their very own mouths. My guest today, former BYU and NFL linebacker, Leon White. Leon, it's good to see you. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. It's great to be here.
I was telling you before we started rolling, there's never a bad time to talk some BYU football, and man, you were certainly involved in some of the best BYU football games ever played.
Oh, we had some days, believe me. It was exciting times.
Well, and we're going to get into all that because this season we're celebrating the 100 seasons of BYU football. This is season 100, which is kind of crazy when you think about it, but you were brought back to be part of a roundtable on BYUtv honoring the 40th anniversary of the 84 national championship team with players from the team, and our listeners actually can view that broadcast on the BYUtv app if they missed it when it originally came out. What was it like for you to be honored in that way?
It was exciting, first of all, just to get back and see the old players and players that I've watched ever since I've left BYU, and we went through kind of the centuries and the decades of BYU football, and it was fun to talk to those guys and get their take on BYU football and how exciting it really was.
You know, I would imagine that there are probably some teammates that you keep in contact with a little bit closer than others. It's just natural when as time goes by, even though you're close, you don't have the contact. What was it like just to see all those faces and be able to relive all these moments with guys that you were in the trenches with?
It was great. It was exciting. When you're so close to a group of players that we were in 84, you don't skip a beat. You don't see each other for years and years. And when you get together, you just get back together and talk about old times. And it's like you were there just yesterday. So it was great.
Well, and I know it's obviously an exciting time, and it's always great to be able to talk about the great Lavelle Edwards. But obviously this time around, Coach Edwards and some of the other coaches that were a part of that team, unfortunately, were not present. What do you miss most about Coach Edwards? Everybody's got a story, certainly personal stories, because he was just that type of guy.
Yeah.
What do you miss most about him?
His honesty was amazing to me. He just told it like it was, and that's what made me feel comfortable about coming to BYU when I first was recruited by him. He just told me, hey, you have a possible chance to start right away, and this is going to be a good place for you. We're going to treat you well. You're going to do well, and we want you here. And that's the honesty that you don't get all the time in coaches. Sometimes a coach will pull your leg and, tell you he wants you here, and you may not have an opportunity to play, but they just want you here. So it was great to have that honesty, and that's what I miss about him the most.
Well, and people can't fake that. You either have that or you don't, and people can pick up on it if they're being, sold a bill of goods, right?
That's true. I mean, I saw it a lot in the NFL. Especially in the NFL, just the coaches, they would give you a line and tell you one thing, but it really wasn't the truth. So that's something that I miss, and I hope that, many more coaches will follow in his footsteps.
Let's push the actual football stuff aside for a second. What type of impact did he have on you as a man?
Oh, gosh. His work ethic was amazing to me. How he treated people, it's something I tried to follow in his footsteps with the kind of a person he was to his family. I admire that so much, the family man that he was. His wife, Patty, is the best person in the world. And I try to treat my wife just like he treated Patty. He had so much respect for her, and you could just tell the way they communicated with each other and how they were around other people. It was just, you could just see the love was there, and that's a special thing for me.
One of the things that Lavelle was very outspoken about was his faith. He was a man of great faith. How did he impact your own personal faith, do you believe?
Well, he said you've got to have something to believe in, whether it's something on the religious side or a belief that you have to have something to believe in and then follow it truthfully. And that's what he taught me.
All right, we're going to get into more about the time that you spent at BYU, but let's go all the way back to the beginning. You grew up near San Diego, correct?
Yes.
All right, so take me into the White household. What was the family dynamic like? What was it like growing up?
I'm the youngest of two. I have an older brother, Jim White. We both played sports growing up. My family, we love sports. My mom and dad, they weren't really athletes when they were growing up, but they loved to watch us play. So they put us in everything. You know, my brother played soccer. I played basketball, football, baseball. There was a love of sports in our house. So we grew up doing that. That's what kept us busy. My brother was also a saxophone player in the band. So I never did go to that side. I wish I would have, though, now later in life. I wish I would have. But would
you have gone the route of the saxophone or something else?
I would have played the drums of the saxophone.
Okay.
I mean, that's just how I rolled. But yeah, he was a great musician, and he still plays to this day. So that's something that he kept with him for his whole life. But we were a family that traveled a lot. My dad was an avid sports person. He loved hunting, fishing, and we would go out to the outdoors with him. We'd hunt and fish nearby San Diego, and he was a country guy, so he brought the country to San Diego, basically. But we enjoyed doing that. We enjoyed camping. We were a pretty close-knit family.
You know, you had mentioned how your parents weren't big sports fans, but they loved to watch you guys play. You know, that's a part of athletics that I don't know if it gets talked about enough, the support that it takes from your parents or grandparents or aunts, uncles, to be able to support all of these young athletes as they go through this journey. Can you imagine having done what you've done without their support?
Not at all. I mean, I just remember the first time when my son started playing sports and the commitment you have to have just to get him there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing. And without that, you know, you're going to struggle. You're not going to enjoy it, and you probably won't stick with it. But we had the support. There was no doubt about that. My mom and dad were there every step of the way.
So not only were you a stellar football player in high school, you were also a pretty good baseball player, if I understand that correctly. So when it came down to sort of deciding where this was going to go, was it always football? Did you consider something else? Take me through that thought process when you were younger.
Yeah, well, I started playing baseball when I was 8 years old. That was the first organized sport that I played. And I played that until high school started. And then somebody said, hey, you want to play football? My 9th grade year. I said, yeah, what the heck? I'll try it, but I'm still going to play baseball. So I started playing football my 9th grade year. That was my first year of organized football. And I just loved it. The contact, the speed of the game, the difference it is compared to baseball. Baseball is known as a slow game. So that kind of caught my attention. And then I had a decision to make when I was a senior. I had played baseball and football both years. And my senior year, a scout came to scout me in baseball. And I wasn't a top-ranked player, but I was good enough to go to the minors, they thought. They said, you wouldn't be drafted high, but you could play in the minors and then see what happens after that. And he said, hey, you know, you could check it out. And then I said, I'm thinking about it, because BYU hadn't even come into the picture yet.
Right.
And I thought about it, and then BYU came into the picture, offered a scholarship, and I said, nope, I'm gonna go ahead and take the scholarship and go play football at BYU.
Do you ever play the what if game? Could you have ever imagined, obviously knowing what you know now and the opportunities that you have earned along the way through football, you ever play the what if game? Had I gone the baseball route?
Oh, all the time. Gosh. I thought about that when I was a junior at BYU. And I said, what if? Well, let me try it and see if I can make something out of this. So I played 1 year of baseball here at BYU, and I had a great time. I mean, Coach Pullins was one of the most gracious coaches that you could imagine, and he invited me to play on the team, and it went well. We had a great season, won the WAC championship, and after that, I decided football was still the way to go, but I got that out of my blood.
So a quick aside then. So growing up in San Diego, baseball, football player, did you grow up then a Chargers and Padres guy?
Yeah.
So are you still a fan even though the Chargers have moved to LA? Are those still your teams?
No. The Padres are, but as soon as the Chargers left, I had to let them go.
So did you pick up another team, or you just don't have an NFL team right now?
I'm Kansas City all the way.
Oh my gosh, Leon!
Andy Reid.
You have said the magic words. You have said the magic words, and I didn't even know this was coming. I'm from Kansas City originally. I'm a Chiefs guy.
I didn't know that.
Well, this podcast just turned into a Chiefs podcast. Forget talking BYU. No, I'm kidding. All right, well, it's good to know. At least you kept it in the AFC West.
Yes.
All right, I like that. Okay. Now we'll get back on track. So you mentioned there was a time where BYU, when you were in high school, came into the picture.
Yes.
What did you know about BYU at the time?
Really not much. The first time I had really heard about BYU being a great school in football was the Holiday Bowl.
Yep.
You know, that Miracle Bowl was the first time I had actually watched the game. And, you know, I was definitely interested, but didn't really know much about it. And then my senior year, before my senior year, I had an injury. So I missed the first 6 games of my senior year. I was one of the top players in San Diego at the time. And schools like SC, San Diego State, Arizona State were recruiting me. And after the injury, they kind of dropped off. And I was kind of left hanging without a school to go to. So I kept working out, getting, you know, prepared for somebody to hopefully give me an offer. And then my high school coach, he knew of a coach that was going to BYU to coach. Mm-hmm. It was one of his friends that coached at San Diego State. His name is Ted Tollner. And Ted said, "Hey, ask Leon if he wants to go on a trip to BYU." I said, "Sure, yeah, I'd love to." So I went and, you know, talked to Lavelle, and the rest is history, really.
What was the first impression of BYU and Provo at that time?
Yeah, it was clean, so clean. You know, I went on a trip, I think it was January sometime. It was cold, but the mountains were beautiful. When I stepped off the plane, I saw the mountains and thought, wow, how close. It was like I could just touch it. And that was one of the things that drew me here, just a beautiful place. And then the friendliness of all the people that I met, that was a big draw. And the honesty. Like I said, Lavelle Edwards just so honest about everything that he spoke about. And those are the things that drew me. And then Fred Whittingham came to to recruit me, and that sealed the deal.
Yeah. What was your parents' reaction, your family's reaction when you said, "I think I'm going to go to BYU"?
They were kind of skeptical about it. They really didn't know much about it either. You know, didn't know much about Utah. Knew that it was a religious school, but just had no idea. And then Lavelle Edwards came to the house and talked to my parents, and you know, he smoothed it over and made them feel comfortable about their son going to BYU, and that was enough said right there.
You know, sometimes there can be trepidations. You're going to a religious school, and well, wait a minute, it's not my religion. So, like, how does this work? And you know, I think we're starting to see, especially nowadays, it's less and less about whether it's an LDS school, but it's sort of like-minded values, and it attracts a lot of people that way. Did you kind of look at it that way at the time as well? Oh,
definitely, yeah. The values were at the top of the list, really. I mean, that's what sold me, and my mom and dad also. But yeah, I knew I didn't have to worry about a lot of things going here, and they felt the same way. So I can come up here and go to school and play football and not have to worry about some of the other things that distract you.
So correct me if I'm wrong. You were on the roster in 81, but you didn't play till 82. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay, so what do you remember most about that 82 season when you were able to get on the field and start building your career here at BYU?
Yeah, I was ready to go because I had to sit out my 81 season because of an injury. I got a hardship year. And it was the type of injury that didn't keep me out long. So I was back, you know, training and getting ready for the next season probably a month later. So I was ready to go. I was just itching to play football. And what I remember is the speed that I was comparing it to high school, and the speed of high school is just nowhere near the speed of college football, Division I football. So that's what really shocked me at first.
Everybody certainly will go back to the 84 team because it won the national championship. But how much of what happened in 82 prepared you guys for that really big jump into 83? And look, I know a lot of people that think that 83 team was better than the 84 team, even though it doesn't have the national championship. I don't know how you feel about that, but that is a common sentiment that 83 team may be the best ever. So take me through what 82 meant to you guys that allowed you to make such a big jump heading into 83.
Right. I think the teams that we played starting in 82 really started preparing us for the big games down the road, 83 and 84. I remember playing in the Holiday Bowl against Ohio State, and gosh, how big and strong and fast they were. And that just kind of prepared me to get ready for the next season, because I knew if we were going to play against the top teams, we'd have to be ready physically. And those teams that we played, they were tough, but they prepared us for the future.
Well, and as funny as it sounds, I mean, 83 didn't start out like you were going to expect this big thing, because it started out with a loss to Baylor.
Right.
Then you guys go and win 11 in a row. How much does that Baylor loss just eat at you guys?
It's sickening. I mean, I've talked to Steve about this, and he just thinks, wow, we could have had two back-to-back undefeated seasons. We blew it, though. We blew it. I just think that it was a wake-up call, and I think the loss actually helped us throughout the rest of the season. I mean, it really showed us that we had some work to do.
Sort of a refocus. Even though it's game one, it's
Exactly.
like, oh, wait a minute. If we want to go, we want to go. We can't let this happen again.
Yes, we definitely had to refocus and change our attitude about the way we came after a season like that.
What was the culture of the team like that year in 83?
We knew we were good. We thought that we had one of the best teams in the nation, and we were confident every time we stepped on the field. That Baylor game was just a fluke. That's what we thought. I mean, we just said, it's not going to happen again. And it really propelled us.
Yeah. How did you feel, like, personally, what was that season like for you? Because I believe you had 9 sacks that season, 19 quarterback hurries, and you sort of emerged as one of those leaders on defense. So from a personal standpoint, take me through that year for you.
Yeah, well, I think it was a breakout year for me, really. It was a year that I felt that I had learned the system. I had knew what my expectations were. We were playing on a great team. I mean, we had great linebacker. Todd Shell was on that team, and we knew we had the team to win. And the confidence was there. My confidence was there. And I think that's what propelled me to be the player that I was in 84.
Is the leadership quality, is that in your DNA, or was that something you learned to do and grew into?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've always been a silent leader. I never really was the vocal guy on the field, but I definitely led by example. And, I was the guy that was always hustling. I was the guy that was always on time. I was the guy that was always at meetings, listening to the coaches and taking notes. So I tried to lead by example, and I think that's just as important as any other leader.
I'm sure you get asked this a lot, but 83 ends, and you guys are getting ready for 84. Did you go into 84 with the goals that ultimately would take place? Was it that focused heading into 84 for you guys?
It was. We were a team that really didn't know what to expect of ourselves. Robbie was coming in, Steve was gone, Steve Young was gone, and Robbie was coming in as a first-year starter. And we really didn't know what to expect from the offense. Now, on the defense, that's a different story. We had a lot of guys coming back from the year before, right, and we knew exactly what we had to do to make that season a respectable season. We knew the offense was going to start out slow, so we knew we would have to carry the offense for the first few games until we found out how Robbie was going to do. And that's the way it happened, too.
All right. The 84 season is going to be remembered for a lot of things. And for Leon and his family, though, it would take on even more meaning. We're going to get into that after this quick break. You're listening to the Deep Blue Podcast on BYU Radio. Hey everyone, Jason Shepard here to talk about one of our other great podcasts on BYU Radio, Her Why. It's all BYU women's athletics all the time. The podcast is hosted by my colleague Lauren McLean. She interviews coaches like Heather Olmstead, BYU athletes like basketball's Amari Whiting, and legends like soccer star Ashley Hatch. You'll hear stories of triumph, trials, and toughness. If you're a big Cougar fan, you should check out the Her Why podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Welcome back to the Deep Blue Podcast here on BYU Radio. I'm your host, Jason Shepard. So happy to be talking with former BYU and NFL linebacker Leon White. And before the break, we were talking about something that would take on pretty high significance for you and your family going into 1984. Before that season kicked off, Leon, you got a call from your mom informing you about some news about your dad. Why don't you tell people what that phone call was about?
Yes. Just before the season started, like you said, my mom had called me and said my dad was diagnosed with cancer, and the doctors didn't expect him to live too long. So it was a very, very shocking news that I had just been told from my mom, and I really didn't know what to do. I was on the verge of coming back home just to be with my dad.
Sure.
But my mom said, no, he doesn't want you to come home. He just wants you to stay there, go to school, keep playing football, and he'll see you in December, which was the Holiday Bowl. And that's what I did. I just kind of buckled down and said, I'm going to do this for my dad.
How hard was that? I mean, there obviously a lot of people go through things like that, and everyone's going to process that differently. How hard was that for you, even though it's what your dad wanted you to do? Mm-hmm. How hard was it to actually do it?
It was very hard. I questioned what I was doing after the first 2 weeks of not going home. I thought, wow, this is not what I should be doing. I should be home. But I kept talking to my mom, talking to my brother, and they said, no, you're doing the right thing. Just keep doing what you're doing. He's seeing what you're doing, and it's helping him. So just keep doing what you're doing.
What type of help were your coaches and teammates through that situation?
Oh, they were the best. Just always asking how I was doing. Coach Lavelle Edwards, Patty Edwards, they were the best. They kept watching out for me, basically. You know, they knew that I was going through tough times, and they wanted to make sure that I was all right, that I was going to be all right. And they stuck with me. I mean, it's something that I'll never forget.
Yeah, I was going to say, probably still to this day, that's probably something that you still look back on fondly with appreciation and, something that really helped you get through a difficult time, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. It's I couldn't have done it without my teammates and my coaches and their families. It's people that go through someone dying in the family. Sometimes they don't take care of themselves, I should say. So my family, my team family, they took care of me. They took care of me, made sure I was all right.
There were a lot of incredible moments during that 84 season that kept the team's hopes to return to the Holiday Bowl alive, along with, obviously, with the goal of winning the national championship. So starting that season off, though, you guys had a really tough win against Pitt. How did that game set the tone for the year?
It was great to set the tone because Pitt was number 3, and we thought, wow, guys, we have done something special here. We can really have a good team. Never thinking national championship, but we were thinking good team. We beat a number 3 team that had, Bill Fralick was on there. They had some great defensive players. So we knew we could hang with the big boys. That's what kept us, I think, rolling at the beginning.
Was the 84 season, and probably you could say this about any season, but obviously knowing how that season ended, was it a grind to go through that year, or was it one of those seasons that, wins kept piling on wins and it just became easier and more fun because you guys were playing so well?
Yeah. It was definitely a grind. It was the pressure was on every week.
Yeah.
The worst teams play the best against you. So it was definitely tough. Every week we had to prepare even more so just to be ready for the trick plays. I mean, everybody wanted to knock us off, so they were going to throw everything they had at us. And it was definitely a grind. We went through it was a tough year to get through, believe me.
It's funny, when a team or a player specifically is the focus of every opponent, because that's their Super Bowl, or that's their big game. That's the one that they're trying to knock off the big boys. That really does sharpen the edge of your team, doesn't it? Because you cannot let up, because the moment you do, someone's going to come and take away what you want.
Yeah, it changes everything. It changes the way you prepare for the game, the way you look at each. You really don't look past the next team. I mean, a lot of teams, they fall into that trap, but that was one thing that I think the coaching staff, Lavelle Edwards especially, he made sure that we did not look past each game, because he knew it would bite us, and he kept us in line for the whole season. It was amazing, but they did it.
So knowing it was the goal to get back there, what did it mean to you guys to qualify for the Holiday Bowl and know you're not just going back to play in the game, but you're going back to San Diego and you're going back near your family?
Yeah, I was so excited, because that's when I started getting the news that my dad was going to be able to watch the game on the field. They had done some maneuvering. The Holiday Bowl committee and the coaches from both sides agreed to let my dad come on the sideline and watch the game on a gurney. So I was just so excited about that. That was really the main thing on my mind.
I was going to say, what did that? It probably sort of of course it means a lot. But what did that mean to you? Not just to have him there, but for people to go through that, to make sure that he was as close to you as possible.
Right. It inspired me. I mean, every play, it was like a shot in the arm with adrenaline. I mean, I would go to the sidelines, and I wouldn't go to the team meeting on the side. I would go to him. And
was he coaching you up?
He would give me a pep talk. He said, keep playing hard, and you guys are doing good. Don't give up. I mean, it was great for me.
Take me through the game itself. Walk me through what that game meant to you guys.
It was, first of all, just being there and having the opportunity to play for the national championship. We knew that we were number one going in, and we knew that if we won this game, we would have a chance to do something BYU has never done before. And the pressure of that was amazing, but it was also exciting too, just to know that we can do this. We can beat this team. We have the team to do it, and we can make history right here. What
was your dad's reaction when you guys won the game?
Oh gosh, he was he almost stood up. he wanted to get off the gurney and give everybody a big hug, but he was so excited just to be there and experience it with me and the team. It was a great moment for him.
Well, and for you to be able to share that moment, I mean, the pinnacle to, obviously it took some time for the official "you're the national champions" thing to take place, obviously. Right. But to be able to share that experience with your dad, with your family, in your hometown, is almost like it was tailor-made for you.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, everybody did their part to make it happen, but gosh, it really was a dream come true. And for him to be able to, that was his last game to watch me play. I mean, it ended perfectly. That's just what you'd write in a storybook. So.
Most people are never going to know the feeling of being a national champion, but you do. Can you describe what that feeling is like to know that in '84 you and your team were the best?
Yeah. It's hard to even imagine still that we were the best in college football that year, because, of course, everybody's heard the talk that, you didn't deserve it, right. Or, we've heard all the coaches and their stories about, who you played, and they weren't good enough. Their schedule wasn't good enough. So it's really even more special because of that, because the coaches and the ones that voted, they believed that we were the best, and we were undefeated. No one else was. And it was just the perfect timing.
What do you usually say to people that will bring that up? Is it what you just said? Look, we won every game, we were undefeated, and we were the best. I mean, how do you respond when people kind of want to come at you with that?
Just what I said, basically. We were the only undefeated team that year. No one else was. It's hard to go undefeated in any league, regardless of who you play. So for us to do that with all the pressure that we had, hey, we deserved it, and we are the champions, and we have the ring. So.
I was going to say, by the way, do you still wear the ring?
I do, but I forgot it.
I immediately looked down to that fingers and did not see. So what does that... When you look at the ring, what's the first thing that usually comes to your mind?
Excellence. I mean, it was just an excellent season. The play was excellent. The people we were around were excellent. I mean, it was just a dream season. And gosh, it's been 40 years. We're hoping for another one this year, but it's not easy to do. So excellence.
So after that's done and you guys win the national championship, obviously, your playing days at BYU were not the end of your playing days for football. Ultimately, you're selected by the Bengals, and you played several seasons in Cincinnati, even got to play in the Super Bowl. What did making it to the NFL mean for a guy that earlier in his life thought maybe baseball was going to be the way to go, and now you're in the NFL and you're playing in a Super Bowl? Can you kind of take me through the sort of the thought process on, wow, how did this happen?
Yeah, I attribute it to being around good people, starting with high school coaches, teaching me the right way, following their guidelines, their guidance, and doing the right things at the right time, making some good decisions. The first one coming to BYU, I mean, that was the ultimate decision that really got me started in that road to the NFL. And then just hard work, something my dad taught me. Your work ethic is everything. So work hard at everything you do it to the best of your ability, and you're going to be just fine. So making it to the NFL it was a dream come true, really. When I first stepped on that field, I remember that first game against the Chicago Bears, and I looked out there, and there was Walter Payton. And I thought, wow, what am I doing here?
Sweetness, here we go, sharing the field. It's my job to go tackle him. Yeah. Did you get to tackle him?
No, I wasn't starting at that time.
Okay.
I was just on special teams,
okay.
So I could just sit back and admire him when he was doing his thing. But it was very humbling when you go to try and tackle somebody like that. They can definitely humble you.
What was the transition away from football like for you? What were the opportunities that themselves once your football career was winding down?
Yeah, I have always been a fan of helping kids, whether it be coaching, mentoring. My mom, she was a teacher, and I saw her help kids throughout her life and in my young age. And that's what I wanted to do. So I majored in recreation management. I knew when I got out of football, I would want to work with kids in one way or the other. So my first thing was, I'm going to go to the YMCA. I want to work with kids at the YMCA, teaching them, coaching them, mentoring them. And that was pretty much my career for 20 years after football.
What do you make of what the program is? Because obviously now being in the Big 12, and it's something I think we all thought was going to happen a lot earlier, and then it didn't. But BYU did what it had to do to put itself in a position to get that invite a couple of seasons ago to the Big 12, and now is in a P4 conference and doing well. What do you make of where the program is today and the legacy that continues here in Provo?
Yeah, it just reminds me of when I was playing in the 80s and how BYU was trying so hard to get into the Pac-10 back then. And we wanted to hopefully get games that could hopefully help the team in the program grow, but it never happened. So now that BYU is actually in the Big 12, it's going to be amazing. The growth is going to happen fast. I mean, it's going to be exciting to see this program grow. It's going to grow fast too, guarantee it.
Yeah, it's certainly fun to watch and to be a part of. Leon, thank you so much for doing this. This was an absolute blast to reminisce about, the national championship year, but to get to know you a little bit better. Some of the stuff I knew, some of the stuff I didn't know. So thanks for taking a few minutes. This was fantastic.
Oh, my pleasure. It was fun. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you once again to my guest, Leon White. My name is Jason Shepard. Josh Bergstrom and Ben Hall produced this episode. Deep Blue's senior producer is Cleon Wall. You can download and subscribe to Deep Blue on all podcast platforms or find all episodes on the BYU Radio app. Deep Blue is a production of BYU Radio.